Hi, you're here sewing with Cody and Pete, and in today's video we're going to show you how to make super easy flying geese in multiple different sizes. The instructions are the same for just about every size. The only thing that would be different would be your measurements and the size squares you'll be cutting. So what we're going to be using is one of the best flying geese rulers there is, and that is the Ultimate Flying Geese Ruler. And this one's by Creative Grid. So we can make multiple different size flying geese using the same ruler template. And so what we do is, one of the best things about this ruler is everything you need is right here. Once you know the basic instructions, you can just pull this ruler out and you can look at the diagram up here or the chart up here, and it will show you different size finished flying geese. So you just pick whatever size you're working with or that you want to work with, and then it'll tell you what to cut your pieces to, which will equal each one of these will equal 4 flying geese. So the one I did here, this was flying geese letter B, which is a 1x2. So all I did was go here, and it says cut 1 3 3/4 inch square, just one of them, and then we'll go and cut 4 2 1/4 inch squares, which will yield 4 flying geese. And so here's the size. They're on the smaller side, but here's the size of our finished flying geese. This is just 2 of them put together, but it does yield 4. So let's get started. I absolutely love making flying geese when I've got the right ruler, and the ruler makes it so much easier, not just because the instructions here, but also the other things, which we'll see. So the first thing we're going to need to do is cut 1 2 3/4 inch square. So here I've already got my strip that's 3 3/4 inch wide, so all I have to do is cut it into squares. So we'll just work with one section at a time. So here it calls for 1 3/4 inch square. So I'll just use my other Creative Grid. This is a 6.5 inch ruler. Excellent ruler. So here I'll go and cut my 3 3/4 inch square. And then I'll come to my purple. And the purple calls for 4 2 1/4 inch squares. So I cut it because the scraps I was working with, I was able to cut this into a 4.5 inch square. So basically if I cut it down the center, I'll be able to chop it up and get me 2 1/4 inch squares. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this into 2 1/4 inch rectangles. And then I can cut these in half, so you can layer them up and cut them at the same time. Alright, so here are my 4 2 1/4 inch squares and my 1 3 3/4 inch square, just like they called for up here. So this is what I've got, and now that will yield me 4 of those. So what we need to do now is we need to take our little squares, and we are going to draw a line from corner to corner. Now I'm just using a pencil. You can use different marking tools, but because the color of my fabric, I'm not going to see certain colors of markers, but also I'm not going to see my pencil when it's all said and done. So I'm not really too worried about it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our large square, and just 2 smaller squares, and we are going to put one in that corner and then the other one in this corner. And so what we can see here is these lines line up perfectly. And so what we're going to do, we're going to sew a 1/4 inch on each side. So we're going to go to our sewing machine, put on our 1/4 inch foot, and then sew a 1/4 inch on each side of that line. So here we're at the machine. So we've got our 2 squares lined up in our line connecting essentially. So what we're going to do, we've got a 1/4" foot on, and I've got my 0mm stitch plate on, and we're using Aurifil on the top and the bobbin. So I'm going to stitch or line up the edge, the right edge of my foot with that line. And then we're going to flip it around and stitch on the other side in the same manner. So there we go. So we've got stitched on both sides. Now we're going to cut down that line. So let's go back to the cutting board. So here we are. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut down that center line. And then we'll end up with 2 little pieces that look like 2 little foxes. So then we'll come over to our iron and we'll press those 2 pieces. So now we're going to take one of the little fox and we're going to take another one of our little squares. Remember, we had 4 of these and we've only used 2 so far. So then we'll take this, line it up here, just like that. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to stitch a 1/4 inch on this side and a 1/4 inch on this side. So let's go back to the machine. So here we're back at the machine. So let's stitch a 1/4 inch on this side. And a 1/4 inch on this side. And then what we're going to do, we're going to cut down that line. So we've got a little piece here. So now let's cut down that pencil drawn line. And what I love about using this Flying Geese ruler is your pieces don't have to be perfect, and you'll see why in just a second. So now we've got 2 little flying geese. So you've got all these little dog ears, and we're going to see what happened with those in just a second. So we'll come and we'll press this out, and we can do this one as well. So now we're really going to see how the ultimate Flying Geese ruler shines. So if you remember, we did Flying Geese B, which was yielding a 1 by 2 inch goose, and then a 3 3/4 inch square was cut, and then 4 2 1/4 inch squares were cut, and it will yield 4 flying geese. So, but we're working with Flying Geese B. So if we look here where it says trim 1, you'll see all these triangles, and they're all labeled just like they are here. So what we'll do is we can come to the B, and we're going to line the actual little goose up with the white B triangle. And we're going to trim this side and that side up there. So let's do that. So here we've got all this nice and trimmed. Now if you look at this side of the ruler, so I have to rotate it, this one's trimmed too. So what we're going to do, we cut it this way, we're going to also rotate this one. And we're going to line up where it shows the B, which is right here, this white one. And we're going to line it up in a similar manner. So this side and this side has already been nicely trimmed up, so that should line up perfectly with the line, and the triangle here should line up perfectly with our center triangle. So we'll cut off this section and that section, just like we did before, but we just rotated both ruler and our little flying goose. So here we have one finished flying goose. So with using the ruler, not only is everything marked there, and it tells you what size to cut what and how much would yield what, but it trims it up to give you the perfect flying goose. So essentially you following the instructions, you cut a slightly larger flying goose, but you trim it down to the exact size you need. And the beauty of that is now you have a perfect flying goose. So when you go put them all together, they'll be perfect. Because a lot of other patterns will tell you to cut triangles, and you're going to sew those triangles onto this rectangle, and then that's the size you need. But then it's kind of wonky. Or you put squares in each corner, you'll sew them and then cut them, but then it's still that size and it's kind of wonky. But here, you have them cut a certain size, and then you trim up all sides using the ruler, and you end up with a perfect flying goose. So let's do that again. So we'll cut the one, and we'll rotate it, and rotate our little goose. So we've got another flying goose. So let's go to the machine and we'll just sew these together. So here it's super easy. So we're just going to put right sides together. And with our 1/4-inch foot, we'll yield our little flying goose, our row of flying geese. And so we'll just press these and we're good to go. But it gives you a nice point, and you get that consistent point all the way across. Because when we trimmed it, it leaves us a nice 1/4-inch right at the top. And you get a perfect flying goose. So that is the Ultimate Flying Geese Ruler by Creative Grid. It's a wonderful tool that you can make many different size flying geese to suit whatever need you need. All right, well, hopefully you enjoyed. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and as always, happy sewing.